You've been around now for weeks and months. Do you feel like a San Jose Shark yet, or is it still kicking in?
No, I feel like a San Jose Shark. It's been obviously it's been a quick turnaround when you get hired in late July and early August, and there's a lot to do in a short period of time. But I feel really good about our staff. I feel really good about the direction that our team's going in. Things happen fast and furious in training camp with a short training camp and heading over to Europe. But you know, once you get into it, you're into it, and we're certainly into it.
Obviously, a head coach of any sport is a little bit of a delegator, right? You have a coaching staff, and they will do some of the heavy lifting too. But for you personally, how do you find yourself to be most impactful on a hockey team as the head coach?
Well, I think from a head coaching standpoint, it's a balancing act. When to be present, when to kind of put the pedal to the metal, and when to back it off. I equate it to driving a car. Sometimes you got to go 85, and sometimes you got to put it in neutral. And I think as a coach over the course of an 82-game season, you've got to have a feel of, you know, when to back off and when to lean on them. And you know, that's a balancing act. I feel very fortunate with the staff that we have. They can help me make those decisions. Certainly constantly talking with Mike and our front office. They're observant of what's going on here too. So, you know, with the support staff we have here, I feel very fortunate in that regard. And, you know, but to me, my number one responsibility is to put our team in the right mindset and make sure that we're well prepared.
Scoring has plagued this team over the last couple seasons. Last year, in fact, quarter of the game saw him score one goal or get shut out. Is that something that you can coach into them, scoring more goals? I know it's an impossible question or even answer, but how can this team produce more offensively?
Well, I think there are certainly things I think we can do better consistently that will put us in a better position offensively. And, you know, as I've said before, you know, we're just looking for guys to improve incrementally, whether it be 5 or 10% throughout the course of the season. And, you know, if you get a guy who scored 5 goals last year and all of a sudden he scores 8 to 10, you know, there's a jump up. And if everybody can kind of, we're not looking for a guy to go from 5 to 40, although that would be nice. But, you know, if everybody can just be a little bit better, I think obviously you're more productive offensively, and that's where your goals increase will come from.
5 to 25, though, is more likely, right?
That can happen.
I could think of a few.
Yes, I can too. I've had conversations with those exact players about that.
You know, and I talked to a lot of your players this summer, like as you were hired and as this whole process was happening. And one of the things I was curious about is, what's it like, you know, to come back to a team, but there's a new head coach, and you want to make a good first impression, not just you, the entire coaching staff. They've been around for a while, but how do you establish well with the new coach? Same thing, though, from a reverse side of it. Have you been trying to make a good impression on your players?
Well, a couple things. I mean, anytime you coach a team, the number one thing they got to understand is that you care about them and you want them to be the best player they can possibly be. And I don't care what level you're coaching. I mean, we're all human beings. You know, once they understand that, you've got a much better chance of making an impact with your players and your team. And, you know, hopefully they see that. And hopefully they've seen that from day one as our staff has been together and how we've interacted with them, that, you know, this is about, you know, two things. One, making them the best player they can possibly be, and two, making our team the best team we can possibly be. And we'll do everything we can to do that for them. So, you know, I think it's important that they understand that from day one, and then once you establish that, you have a much better chance to make an impact on your team.
When you go home today, you have your home established here in San Jose yet?
Still
working on that?
A lot of furniture came yesterday. A lot of unpacking to do. My poor wife's home right now, probably calling me now. Where are you?
Will some of that at least make life easier for you once you can establish here? I mean, again, it all happens so quick. Will that make a big deal for you?
It will make a little. It will make a difference for sure. Yeah. Once you're settled in, I mean, we've all gone through moving at some point in our lives. Yeah. Once you get established personally and you're here, and you don't have to go home and worry about unpacking boxes and, you know, going out and buying an iron or an ironing board or a vacuum. Your life's a little bit more simplistic.
The East Coast accent, right? You carry that.
It's there.
Are you a West Coast guy, though? Can you be a West Coast guy?
Absolutely. I'm a very adaptable human being. I've lived in Omaha, Nebraska. I've lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've lived a lot of places, and I'm glad I'm living in San Jose.
You had the chance to obviously coach college hockey for a number of years, well before the New York Rangers job. Is there something about coaching college kids that you still use in coaching professional athletes? Is there something from that you extract to now bring to this?
Well, I think when you coach college hockey, it's so relationship driven because even before the player gets to you, you've established a relationship through the recruiting process. So there is that connection well before you actually coach them. And I think throughout any coach at the collegiate level, they see the value in that, one. Two, I think what college coaching does for all of us is it makes you a better coach because you can't trade people, you don't cut people. The guys you have them, and it's your responsibility to make them better players. So I think those two things are huge regardless of which level you're coaching at. And if you can kind of apply that at this level, obviously with some tweaks to it because you're just dealing with a different age group, I think you're going to be a more successful coach.
Do some or any or most of the players in the Sharks dressing room, do they know your story about having your hockey playing career cut short?
I would be shocked if they do.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think they know that?
No, I don't. That was a long time ago. None of them were born when that happened.
That's true. Yeah, actually, kind of feeling old too. Do you think that could at least, if and when they did find out, something like that could not gain respect, but it could help set in place who you are, and you didn't give up hockey, and although, like I said, it was basically the game and it was taken away from you, and you found another avenue in this game?
Well, regardless of what situation I went through in my past, I think it's important for everybody to understand, where people have come from, So, whether I'm coaching a player or a player's trying to find out more about his coach, I think it helps any relationship when you've got a little bit of track record or history of what the person's about. So, maybe it may shed light to them on how much I love the game, and that when you are throwing a curveball, you can't feel sorry for yourself. You gotta rebound from it, dust yourself off, and get back at it. So, I think any time in life when you're in relationships like we are as coaches and players, anytime you can find out a little bit more about somebody, the better chance you have of having a successful connection.
And to be clear, for those watching who don't even know what I'm talking about, it was a rare blood disorder, right?
Yeah.
And it just would not allow you to continue participating. You had been drafted, first-round draft pick in the NHL.
Yeah.
Do you want that to live on as kind of a story of who you are? Would you rather keep that in the past? Like I said, I don't know that that a lot of people are even aware of that as you come out here.
It's funny. When something like that happens to you at the age of 20, when you think you're going to play in the National Hockey League for the next 10, 15 years, and all of a sudden at 20 it's taken away from you, there is a adjustment period for sure. Yeah. And I wouldn't say I was the most mature person in the way I handled it, but again, I moved on quickly. I found another passion, and I wouldn't change my life for anything. I've been very, very fortunate in my coaching career, and would I have loved to play in the National Hockey League for a long period of time? I sure would have, but I just love coaching so much and have found a passion in the profession that I have that I feel very fortunate.
When you knew that you were at least up for this job or that you eventually took the job, did you go back on a lot of Sharks game tape from last year to figure out who these guys were on an everyday basis? Not like it was a complete surprise, but to really dive in deep?
It's funny, I started watching and then I realized, we're going to play different than they did last year.
Right. What's the point?
It's no knock on someday, unfortunately, I'm going to lose my job, and there's going to be a new coach coming in here, and he's going to do something different. That's just, you coach to your DNA and to your personality, and I thought it would be almost unfair to do that. So I actually wanted to come in with a clean slate and judge the players by what I saw. So early on, when I got the job, I think your instinct is, I got to watch, I got to find out an awful lot about it, and after watching a game or two, I just stopped and thought, I want to give everybody a clean slate, and we're going to go about doing things differently and, judge them from that.
Well, we watched all the games last year, and it would be hard to pinpoint the Sharks and say that they were second in the league at anything. They just had a rough season all the way around, except for they were second in the league on the penalty kill. And early on here, even in this season, that positive trend continues. What do you see in your team of why they're able to be successful shorthanded?
Well, I thought they were very aggressive last year. They were very diligent in their responsibilities. And you could just say this organization for a long time, over the last since I've been in the league, has been on the top penalty killing teams in the league. So we certainly want to continue that trend. That being said, if we drop to 7th or 8th, yet we win more hockey games, I'll take that trade-off.
Yeah,
I'll take that trade-off.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to kind of save some of our top players maybe for more offensive situations. You may not see Hurdle and Couture out there as much on the penalty kill. We think we've added some guys that also can kill penalties to maybe give us a little bit more depth up front with guys that can kill penalties. But so far, so good.
Trade 5% of the PK for 5% more of the power
I'll
play.
take that. I'll take that.
That'll get you the goals you need.
Yes, it will.
I know you want to come in here and do things the right way. You want to establish something that can sustain and persist. How do you handle the other side of it where you're probably pretty urgent? And I mean, this team hasn't seen the playoffs in 3 years for the first time in franchise history, as crazy as that sounds. How do you balance urgency versus the right way?
Well, I think urgency is always secondary to that, because I think if every single day you approach doing things the right way and set a standard and a level of expectations that your players clearly understand, I don't think you really need to have that urgency. I think the winning and losing takes care of itself. And sometimes you find out about yourself through losing, and I know it's a very small window and a 2-game weekend, but we left Europe feeling pretty good because of the progress we made from Friday to Saturday night. I mean, we had an unbelievable third period. It was the best period of the weekend, and Nashville didn't back off. We played a playoff team from last year that made some key additions that have probably put themselves in a better position to win the Cup, and their decor might be the best decor in the league, and here we were, out shooting 15-3 in the third, and spent an awful lot of time in the offensive zone. Even leading into the third period, it was basically an even game, and maybe we had the edge a little bit. So, we feel good about the direction we're going. Now we need to build on that. And we talked about that yesterday in practice, and we talked about that in practice today. It's not just in the games. We got to come with that mindset day in and day out, physically and mentally, with the mindset that we're going to get better.
After watching different head coaches here, the Daryl Sutters, the Todd McClellans, the Pete DeBoers, the Bob Bugners, we kind of get a gauge of who they are at some point, right? Through the ups and the downs, and everybody's a little predictable at a certain point. Hope this is fair for me to say about you. In everything you've done and said and presented so far, super polished. I mean, from a presenter by nature like I am, I'm like, he just has a nice way of delivering. So I'm curious, is that who you've always been? Does the coach in you make you that way? Does it help with your players when you present a message that's polished?
I don't know. It's funny you say that, because I don't think of it that way.
Really?
I sit here and I think we're having a conversation.
Well, I agree, but it feels like everything I've seen you do in a press conference, you get up there sometimes, there's awkwardness, or maybe you don't know what you want to say, or you have to navigate carefully around saying something that could have a lot of different meanings. You just seem like you go up there with a purpose, and you're just really smooth so far.
Well, I don't know if smooth, maybe sincere.
Well, that's part of it too, right?
I mean, I don't hide a lot.
You're not a robot up there.
No.
You're a human with feelings, and also, like I said, with intent on what you're saying.
Yeah, just like, to me, and I've always felt this way. I mean, I want to be respectful of everybody in their profession, and when I'm talking to the media, they have a job to do, and I want to be as honest with them as possible without crossing the line professionally and not compromising what we're doing as an organization. So, that's how I've always approached it.
All right, last thing for you here. I mean, as we're at the very beginning of the season, where do you want to be at the end of this season? What's at least a bar of success that would? I mean, make
80-2 would pretty much do it.
But is it just wins and losses? Is it culture?
No,
is it?
I think obviously every coach says this, and it's a word that I don't love, but it is true. You want to create an environment and a culture where there's a way to do things. And, the good news for us is we've got guys here that have had an awful lot of success, deep playoff runs, played in the Stanley Cup, so it's not like our older players have to, learn something they haven't already done. And we want to kind of pick up the successful mindset they had during those successful years and instill that in everybody that we bring into this organization.
Best of luck, obviously, and we appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you.